Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to fix a chainsaw that bogs. The carburetor's already been cleaned, it's been rebuilt, and it still does the same thing. And the saw here is a Stihl MS211. It's not that old. And what I will do right now is start it up so that you can hear the symptoms. And you clearly saw the symptoms there, and the weird thing is that one day the saw might work half decent, but an hour later or the next day it won't. Like I mentioned earlier, I've already cleaned, replaced the carb kit, and adjusted the carburetor as well, and these issues are still going on, so what I'm going to do today is replace the carburetor. And you've probably noticed a lot of my recent videos I've been replacing carburetors on equipment. Well, that's because with the manufacturing today being not as good as it used to be maybe, but mostly the fuels that we use today in our equipment can damage carburetors and make them bog or do the same symptoms that I showed you earlier. And to avoid aggravation in the future, it's just better off to replace the carburetor, especially if it's not your own equipment. When you fix stuff for other people, you have to have in mind that you don't want them to be coming back in 2 weeks with the same problem. So you're better to fix the problem right at the root instead of just patching or doing patch jobs, sending it out and having it come back. To start this repair today, just remove the top cover, pull down on this tab here, lift it up. Now remove the air filter, just pull the tabs. It's going to pop off. Now with a T27 Torx screwdriver, you need to remove the Torx screw over here, and there will also be one here and one there, so 3 in total. And now you'll need to remove the 2 8mm nuts located here. Now at this point, the other 2 Torx screws are inside the plastic part here, so when you pull it out, just beware of that. Now I'm going to pull this right out. The screws are in there, but they are loose, they can fall out. Now what I like to do is pop out the choke lever just a bit on this one side here. This is just to allow me to remove the choke linkage from the mechanism on the carb. And I'm going to leave the linkage right on the choke lever. Now I'm going to pull the carb off the studs. And that's all there is to removing that carburetor. And I've got my new carb here. It's an OEM Stihl carburetor. It's part 1139-120-0612. I don't believe at this time that you can buy an aftermarket carb online. However, for a lot of other Stihl chainsaws, you can buy aftermarket carburetors online for a lot less money. And as usual, always take your carb and make sure that it's the same as the one you're replacing. You want to compare the old carb here to the new one, and in this case it's absolutely identical. And just a quick tip here, when you order a new carb, you also want to give these numbers off your old carb so that they can get the exact specific carb for your saw. Sometimes there can be multiple different carburetors for the same chainsaw. And now to install the carburetor, you want to position it this way toward the chainsaw. The fuel line connector here will go directly into the fuel line over here. So there's no need to actually physically grab a fuel line and connect it yourself. So now just line up the carb on the studs. Push it right in. You want to push it in as far as you can. Now connect your choke linkage. Just get the linkage right into that hole. Push here at the bottom as well, it's going to get right in there. Now push down on the choke lever to clamp it back into this groove. And just try it out here just to make sure you have it on right. And that's good. Also test out the fuel trigger. And that's moving accordingly. And here's the throttle linkage here. So it's quite a simple design, but it works really well. Now at this point I'm going to install this plate here that goes behind the carburetor. And now with a T27 torque screwdriver, I'm just going to tighten them up by hand here. You don't want to over tighten them with an impact, so just use common sense, put them nice and snug. And remember, these screws that hold this part on are screwing into plastic, so it's a lot easier to strip the threads. And now you've got the one at the bottom here. And now just install this plastic part, just line it up with the studs here. And don't tighten up the first nut quite yet, you want to tighten these up evenly. And I don't have the torque specs for these two small nuts here. Again, use common sense, tighten them up evenly. Just don't overdo it. And now reinstall the air filter, just line up the tabs at the bottom here. And now you want to click it in. And now reinstall the cover. And you have to line up the front part of the cover in this groove here. Once it's in, push down, push this tab back in, and the cover is secure. Now I'm going to start it up, and hopefully there's no other issues with this saw. So I'm really glad with the outcome. Replacing the carburetor made it perfect again. And by the way guys, this is a very peppy little saw. If you think this saw won't be too powerful, just try one out one day and you'll be surprised. I saw these on the shelf at the Stihl dealer and I thought, oh man, it's a bit too small. I wasn't really recommending it to my customers, but I'm going to start doing that. Now if you replace the carburetor and you still have problems, you probably need new crank seals or something like that. Most of the time when I replace the carburetor with the symptoms that I showed you, it does solve the problem. Now if you want to, before replacing the carburetor, you can do a leak down test to make sure you don't have an air leak somewhere. I was pretty confident, that's why I did not do the leak down test on this saw before replacing it. I do, however, have a video of me doing a leak down test on a chainsaw power head, and the link is under the video today so that you can watch how that is done. It's going to vary slightly from saw to saw if you do that procedure, however it's the same principle. And by the way, when I replaced the carburetor, I did not even have to adjust the carburetor at all. I just slapped it in like you saw today, started it up, and never tweaked or adjusted any of the screws on the carburetor. If you do buy an aftermarket carburetor online for these saws, you probably will have to adjust the carbs after they're installed. So thanks again for watching guys. Also make sure to follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and have yourselves a great day.